And I'd like to offer on behalf of all of us, happy birthday, Brian.
Thank you.
Let's have the roll call.
Well, if I can, I'd like to request a few more minutes. A few people are trying to log in and can't. So
Well,
from a distance,
I don't think the roll call is something that they will feel that.
clicking on the calendar is not working.
He's not getting it. I don't, it's the same link that everyone else is using.
Uh,
I don't-
I'm having trouble logging in. The small one.
Okay, Marty, if we just at least start the roll call.
Yes, second floor, when you get to the stairs, top of the stairs, make a lot.
I can go to my desk and log in and try to send him.
yeah, could you do that?
Okay, so we're recording,
He's
All
one.
right.
and when you're ready to screen share.
You got this in
back
front of-
into the-
He said.
I can. Is there anyone else, or is it just me?
I think.
Second. So you're ready to go,
Roll call, people start on that side.
Don Misley,
Carl Rothbard.
Janet Lindstrom.
Marty Skrlinis. Richard Road.
We have one commissioner absent. And that's Todd Lambert.
so, this is a special meeting, and the purpose of it is to review a certificate of appropriateness for the preservation of an historic structure and addition of a residential structure at 51 Main Street. And the applicant is 51 Main Street LLC. And it's my belief that the applicant is ready to present.
It's the best place for me to sit.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commission members. I'm Attorney Tim Hollister, from Hartford, representing the applicant 51 Main Street LLC. Mr. Carp and Mr. Stone, my principals and clients are here. Also with me is Len DeAndrea, who's been our consulting engineer on this redevelopment plan. Ms. Hull has been the architect who prepared the preservation plan for the existing historic structure and the architectural design of the building. I believe on the line is Travis Brock Kennedy, who yesterday, it used to be a good thing when we say he tested positive, but not this time. So he has absented himself physically, but he is, believe is, yes, he is on the call, and both me, Mr. Hull, and Mr. DeAndrea will be available for questions as I will. I have two questions that I want to put on the record. I'm not sure the commission members will, or staff will be able to answer them, but I've been put on the record. First question is that under the town charter, section 31-4, it says, and this is the first sentence I'm quoting, when implementing section 5 of Senate Public Act number 430, which is the state law that allows historic district commissions to operate at the local level, says, quote, this commission shall prepare a list of exterior architectural features which it shall designate as being obviously congruous with the historic and architectural aspects of the area, meaning the historic area. Do we know whether this commission has prepared such a list? Does anybody know?
I think that was very long time.
Okay, does it still exist today? Do you know where we can find it?
I might have one in my house, but I don't have one presently. But that was a long time ago that when that was proposed, I'm pretty sure that was done.
Okay,
And most of the things at that time were like windows and doors and
right,
very superficial things.
okay. Well, if I could just engage Attorney Gelderman on the record, could we agree that if we can timely find a copy, that should be entered into the record of this hearing? If you can find a copy, because I think we need to look at the town hall. Okay. Second question, just to put on the record is under, General Statutes, 7-147 little d, the town of New Canaan, uses the rear end of 51 Main Street for parking. As I read 7-147 D of the general statutes, the town should have obtained a certificate from this commission in order to conduct that parking. So I'd just like to inquire whether the town has ever obtained such a certificate. The applicant does not have any knowledge or record of that. So I just, okay, put that on the record. All right, so as the chairman said, the application here is for a certificate of appropriateness for the redevelopment site plan as revised to January 9th, 2023, and the architectural plans, renderings, and elevations prepared by Mr. Hull in January and February of this year. Now, what I just referred to, or a subset of that, is in tab 6 of our narrative package dated August 7th, in front of Mr. Gelderman. It's just paper copies of tab 6. If any member of the public would like a copy, please come up and take one. I have brought extra ones. But that is exactly what is in tab number 6. Very important to note that the plans, architectural and civil plans, building height, architecture, were substantially revised during the planning and zoning process of January and February of this year, and thus differ quite substantially from what this commission reviewed in October of 2022. Put that on record. That's reflected actually in some of the filing, some of the portions of our August 7th application, but I just wanted to point that out. So the application at this point consists of the narrative package, which I see you have in front of you, and the civil site plan that was filed with Mr. Platts in August of this year, the civil plans and the architectural renderings. So in terms of our presentation tonight, we're going to be very brief. The written application, I hope you would agree, is comprehensive and detailed. And it's intentional. We just tried to cover everything that we thought was completely relevant, and it's been on file with the town for 10 weeks. So we are going to make the assumption that the commission members have reviewed it. We're not going to go through it tab by tab, page by page, which would take several hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize what we think are the key points, and our consultants, Mr. DeAndrea, Mr. Hull, here in the room, and Mr. Kennedy online, are available for your questions. So the basic points we want you to appreciate are the 8 justifications for granting a certificate of appropriateness. And these I will go through one by one. Number 1 is that the application, the plan, will preserve the existing structure, the existing 1880s structure, and avoid the alternative of demolition. In tab 1 and tab 7 of our submission are letters explaining in detail how most of the building, but all of the street-facing elements, so to speak, will be preserved. It may also be of interest that the building was originally built as a residence, so the proposed residential use will restore the original use. That's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that the existing structure will be relocated from its current distance of approximately 50 feet from the street line to 17.5 feet from the street line. Now, one thing to remember is that at the property frontage on Main Street, it's diagonal as compared to the front line of the house, so the distances vary a little bit, but basically it's going to be 17.5 feet from the house. Our belief is that this will make the historic structure as preserved and as restored more visible from the street, which is a good thing. One of the key criteria of the Historic District Commission regulations is visibility from the street, and we believe this will enhance that visibility. When the map that is at the end of our tab 1 cover letter, we've given you a map where Mr. DeAndrea's firm measured off the precise distances, setbacks of the buildings in the historic district from the street line. And there are several that are at a comparable distance to 17.5. There are some that are smaller than 17.5. There are some that are larger. Another point is that certainly the setbacks are not consistent in any way across the district. Next is we pointed out in our package that several buildings in the historic district have been relocated to their present present location, including the Rogers Studio, a photograph of which is at tab 5J, and the Rock School at tab 5L. Including in those photographs, you'll see a narrative that is posted next to each of those structures that details the actual physical move of the structure to its present location. At tab 11 of our materials, we have tried to show that relocation of historic structures, while perhaps not the first alternative, it is a common practice, certainly in Connecticut and we believe elsewhere. At tab 7, you have a letter from Mr. Hall where he reviewed the poster that's been put out, published by the National Register of Historic Places, which specifically recognizes that buildings may be relocated as part of a preservation effort. Excuse me. And Mr. Kennedy has pointed out in his letter at tab 7 that a particular setback from a public street, such as 50 feet, was not part of or essential to the so-called Queen Anne style of the existing structure. The structure itself, of course, defines the Queen Anne style, but the setback is not from the street, is not part of that definition of that style. Reason number 3, overall, with respect to the New Canaan Historic District, this application shows what I will summarize as inconsistency. Inconsistent street setbacks. Inclusion in the district of several buildings that are not historic, but in fact are relatively new, such as the adjacent 41-47 Main Street, built in 1966, and according to the records that we reviewed, replaced a tennis court at that time. There's a list of those structures that fall into this category in tab 1, page 6 of our submission. Next, we have documented buildings in the historic district that have had numerous additions, modifications such as balconies, decks, pools, garages, and additional residential units. Example would be the pool addition visible from the street that you approved, this commission approved in January of this year. A list of those structures and additions is at tab 1, page 7 of our submission. There are several buildings that by right should be in the historic district, such as Vining Cottage, which is adjacent on the south side, but are not, with no reason given for that. Next, the New Canaan Historical Society has published a brochure entitled Historic New Canaan, and a copy of that is at tab 12. And if you look at that brochure differs very substantially from the formal 1963 district as to what it believes to be historic resources in the town, such as it identifies Vine Cottage and Town Hall as historic resources. Next, we point out that the map that is actually attached to the original town historic district ordinance, black and white map, is very inaccurate as to the location and orientation of buildings on each lot within the district. When we were at planning and zoning last year, one of the consultants used that map to scale off apparently setback distance from the street. And then Mr. DeAndrea's work documented that the map was nowhere near accurate as to those distances. We pointed out that twice, apparently, the idea of a national registered district has been brought up, first in 1990 and then earlier this year. But in summary, it appears that the district, the property owners were in opposition, so that idea was not pursued. So overall, it appears to us that the town and the residents like what I'll call the cachet of having an historic district, but in reality, there are many inconsistencies, and thus what some of our opponents last year referred to as the integrity of the district, we believe, has already been compromised in documented ways. Reason number 4 is that 51 Main Street is largely screened from view. It is visible directly from Main Street at its frontage, but it's blocked by Vine Cottage from the east, by 4147 Main Street from the west, by Town Hall from the south, and on 3 sides by mature trees, some of which are deciduous, some are evergreen, but there are mature trees on 3 sides of the structure. As a result, we submit that the addition to the site will not be highly visible throughout the historic district, as consultants in opposition to us claimed at planning and zoning last year. Reason number 5, now I'm addressing the proposed new addition. As designed by Mr. Hull, it is intended to meet the 2 principal criteria, one being architecturally compatible with the preserved structure, but also differentiated from it. Well, Mr. Hull and Mr. Kennedy have addressed those criteria in their letters at tab 7 of our submission. As I think you know, the proposed addition would be located behind the preserved structure. It would be between 33 and 38 feet from the street line. Again, the street line being diagonal to the frontage. I should say the street line being diagonal to the front of the building. The preserved structure will be 31 feet at the peak. The new structure will be 48 feet at the peak. So the difference is only 17 feet. And it's approximately the same distance if you use the town's zoning rules at the midpoint of the roof, 25 feet and 43 feet. The difference is between 17 and 18 feet. We do not believe that is significant. And I would point, one measure of that is I would point out that this property is, and this is of course not historic, this is zoning, but the maximum as of right allowable height of the building in the Residence B zone where this property is located is 40 feet, and that's to the midpoint of the roof. So we don't believe that we're proposing anything that's completely out of sync with the rules of the town. Reason number 6 is we believe that the mass of the building is consistent with several nearby structures along Main Street. We've given you photos of those at tab 5. And I would, along those same lines, the maximum impervious coverage in the Residence B zone, again, a zoning regulation, is 15%. But again, that is a zoning regulation. It's not an HDC regulation. And certainly there are multiple downtown buildings that have lot coverage in the range of 50 to 100%. Reason number 7 is that we believe this is an ideal location for a small multifamily housing development. It is a downtown location. It is walkable to services, amenities. It has its traffic plan approved by the State Department of Transportation in 2023 because Main Street at this location is a state route, and it has available sewer and water. The sewer approved by Buchanan's Water Pollution Control Authority in June of this year. And then finally, reason number 8, and again, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but we took the time to take the commission's guidelines and regulations. This is at tab 13 of our submission, and go point by point as to which ones are applicable which ones are not applicable, and then to the ones that are applicable, explain how this application complies. So we think in that sense, we tried to dot our i's and cross our t's. I would remind the commission, as to the limits of your jurisdiction under the regulations and the statute. You're only looking at exterior features, you're only looking at features that are visible from the street. There was reference last year in the zoning proceedings that we were violating the guidelines of the Secretary of Interior. Secretary of Interior has put out guidelines, not regulations. And because there is no state or federal money involved in this redevelopment proposal, there is no state historic preservation office review. So for the reasons that I've outlined, as stated in greater detail in our August 7th submission, that is the basis on which we request approval. So that is our presentation, Mr. Chair and Commission members, and the applicant team is here for your questions.
Thank you for abbreviating that so nicely.
I could have kept you for hours.
I want to first see if we have questions from any members of the commission.
I have a question. Why are you moving it up toward the street?
Sorry.
Why are you moving the house up towards the street? And that's an entryway to Canaan. It's a very historic, nice way we approach the town. And now you're going to bring it up. It's going to change that approach and that feeling of historic where everything else is pushed back.
Well, we're moving it closer to make room.
The house, you're moving,
Yeah,
that's what I understood.
right, we're moving it closer to make room for the addition.
And I'm saying, I think that that's a mistake.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we can agree and disagree on that, but, you know, as I said, visibility of the preserved structure is a plus. The
Well,
preserved-
also the structure that's going back looks from the picture I had looking at on SD9. That looks very, very large for downtown Virginia.
Okay, well, again, I gave you the dimensions, the height differential, so it is set back. So,
I mean, it's up there with what the picture was.
yes,
That looks very large, and I'm saying that the moving it forward takes the lawn away almost all of it from what I'm looking at, which is not a good look for the historic district.
well, what we're preserving
Mine
is,
is mine.
we'd rather have, just speaking for, we'd rather have demolition of the structure, so it's not there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Would you rather have the historic structure demolished? That's the ultimate.
Not.
So the applicant is proposing to preserve. the structure.
Just saying, maybe that we could modify it a little bit, I don't know.
Certainly, if
I mean,
you,
they've done this in the past and been very successful.
if you have proposed modifications, we are all ears on those.
Sure, I understand there will be a 6-foot tall electrical transformer. Between the sidewalk and the front porch of the historic house. And then additionally, that will be surrounded by bollards.
And landscape.
Now, landscaping is within the statutes, not a way to, that's not a legitimate way to block a view. The landscaping can disappear at any moment. There can be a blight, there can be a drought.
And I don't think a commission like this can make the assumption that it will disappear. If we say we're gonna put it in and it disappears, we'll put it back.
But our regulations say that landscaping cannot be used as a means to shield something from public view.
Right.
So whether or not it stays or doesn't stay, it's.
Well, the transformer is a physical necessity, we would love to put it underground. We looked at, Mr. DeAndrea can help me here, well, what did we look at as alternatives for this one?
Correct, they will not let you put it on the ground.
So they necessary. We're not saying it's where we would put it, or where we were told it has to be.
Are they relocating the transformer that would be, as you view that photo, it's currently standing at the far left corner of the new structure.
The transformer is.
It's currently there. If you look out the window,
Oh, you mean current?
yeah, is that being
It's not
removed?
on our property. I mean, it's not all property.
Go ahead and.
Yeah, that's on the town property, and I think that feeds this building,
So that building, that transformer will be there as well,
because it's not on the applicant's property.
right?
And again, it feeds this building, and, I mean,
I just want to say something for the record, based on all the comments you made. We are looking at this project independently of what's been done in the HDC on the past. You bring up a lot of things about buildings being moved, changed, things not being followed. We have taken this very seriously and specifically looking at this independently of what was done in the past. We're looking at it based on our regulations.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because planning and zoning last year, we were subjected to a wave of criticism based on the other properties that we destroyed, the inconsistency of the other properties. So we're responding to what we were criticized for last year. I mean, I understand your point, but I'm just explaining why we did what we did and why we focused on the district as a whole. We heard a lot about the integrity of the district. And when we looked under the hood, so to speak, we found it, we concluded it was not quite as pristine as had been suggested.
Right, but when it comes to this property, we're gonna want to do the right thing, regardless of what may have happened in the past.
You have no further questions, I'll just yield the chair and just public comment. Do you want to put, maybe I draw and give it this?
I can do it now. Yeah, if you have, I mean, I just want to reference the dates there. Just for the record, there was a correspondence from Attorney Joel Green, who represents some neighbors of the project, and apparently didn't end up with anybody to be entered into the record. I think Joel assumed it was going to be in the record, so Tim is kind enough to, he has a copy of it, I don't, give it to me, so at least we can reference it, and everybody.
And we'll put it in the records.
Yeah, that's your, I mean, can,
Yeah, this is my copy. Should I just read the dates of what they are?
yeah, I think that's fine, and if you've read them, you can give the gist if you want.
Which of that in the record? Oh, that's a list.
This is the correspondence, the cover letter from Attorney Green dated October 17th, 2023, and it sets forth that he enclosed five, I'll say exhibits. One was a letter from Dr. Darren Raymond Locke dated August 17th, 2022. By the way, all these letters are in the planning and zoning file. So
They're all public record.
Yeah.
Okay.
A letter from Dr. Raymond Locke dated October 25th, 2022. A letter from Todd Bryant, a historic preservation consultant and principal at Heritage Resources dated August 23rd, 2022. A letter from Mr. Bryant dated October 24th, 2022, and then excerpts from the transcript of the public hearings before the Planning and Zoning Commission that set forth the testimony of David Scott Parker, FAIA, on both August 23rd, 2022 and October 25th, 2022, with respect to the proposed development. Some of you may, in fact, be familiar with those reports. I don't know, but you know, because of time limitations, the commission needs to vote today. So the only way we can really, I mean, is it possible to let them look at your copy of those documents so that they have them It's part of their deliberation, nothing. Really? Okay. Well, here are those exhibits. And appreciate it.
And for I believe my final plan for this commission. Okay.
So I want to invite members of the public who have comments to address us. And I also want to ask you to be very brief.
Going online first time, or are you going to the people who are here?
I'm going to people who are here right now.
Nathan Lane, we need 10 Father Peter Lane, New Canaan. I have just a few words now on the aesthetics of this. I noticed that the change in the use of the stick style paneling has been added to this, but the entire environment had changed so dramatically, you could hardly call it a rural rectory, which it is. Just for the interest of the commission, I will pass these around. There were 4 in each packet, and if anybody wants more, I will speak to me, and I will email it later.
We want to give, if you're submitting something, then Tim should get a copy of it. There are 4 of each in each.
Yeah, 4 of each in it. And who should get a copy?
The applicant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got one more here.
It's 4 pages. It has mostly to do with the details of the architecture, which it's a very significant building.
Well, that's insane. Back up, that just went around like that.
Tim, when they're finished, we'll make sure you get it.
Yeah.
And I want to give you some Vincent Scully's book on the shingle style. He said, as I worked on the shingle style in the fall of 1948, it appeared apparent to me that it had succeeded another earlier and equally identifiable mode of American domestic architecture. That mode had been involved with an expression of the individual wooden members of the structural frame rather than with the sheathing surface. For obvious reasons, I called it the stick style. And then it's like a basket of sticks. So it is, I'm glad to see at least the boards applied, but they are not, there's a whole nother issue besides the visual appearance of the building, of the original Red Cross building or rectory. Couple of books that have been a very good reference, Victorian dwellings and Victorian house design and authentic full color. And the last 2 pages of that little packet addresses the color issue. There was no such thing as a white stick style building. Anyway, I'm just very concerned about the definition of the architecture. I wanted to keep one of those packets so I could go through it, but I guess you'll see the windows are important. They had a colored glass going down the side of a center panel that's vertical in all the windows, all the way around. There is design work in the balustrade, which I noticed has been changed from the original balusters. It's somewhat similar to the original. The posts and the brackets are significant. I copied them from my house. because I like the appearance of it, but nevertheless, they are original and they should be copied if we have to go this route. I guess it's the windows and the open cut shingles, very important. That in the gable, there's if you'll notice, the shingles are not square cut, they're angled. I think that this has been one of the joys of my living in New Canaan, is to see the shingle style or stick style house. And I think that we would be losing a tremendous asset if this were not totally replicated, everything replicated. And secondly, as I mentioned early on, the environment is so distressing. To see the big bulk behind the visual little rectory. I just hope this will not continue. I know there are a lot of questions about its landscaping and its proximity to the road is going to ruin the whole setting. It is just a disaster for the historic district. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any notes from people that they want to see?
I'm saying one.
Someone wants to speak.
Rose.
Rose Scott Rothbart. I live at 439 Old Stanford Road, and I'm a preservation architect practicing in New Canaan and around the tri-state area. I appreciate this commission's consideration of this. I know that you're going to stick to what's in your regulations. And I think I just want to express how important this historic district is. It's been here since 1963. It does have variety, so everything is not precisely, matching, and that's important because it shows the evolution of our town. It is the core of our town around God's Acre. It is very important to all the citizens of New Canaan, and the honor that we give it, I would like to see the same honor given by the applicant. And I just want to express how important this is to everyone in New Canaan, and I really appreciate the consideration that you are giving it. We just lost the only other stick style house in our town, and it was in pristine condition, and that was a great loss. And I would hate to see the loss of this. It's also important not just its style and its character, but the setback from the street, the way it is sited on that site right now. And I would like you to take all of that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm asking if there are any further comments from the public. And if not, then Paul.
I'll be brief, but I just wanted to respond to a few things with the commissioners that just came up with Commissioner Lindstrom. You mentioned that a lot of the buildings in the historic district are really cut back. That's true for some, but over half of them are actually closer than what's there right now. So where the 51 Main Street Red Cross building is right now, we're moving it closer to become more prominent. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. That's in the package. You can go through it. There's a lot of detail in there that shows how close all of the different buildings are. So it's more than you would think. And Mr. Hollister brought up the reason that we're bringing this up now, responding to what else in the district is because in the record now is what was in the P&Z hearings. And in those hearings, as Mr. Hollister mentioned, there was a lot of testimony saying that that all of the buildings are set back further. It's actually not true. We did an in-depth dive, and it's all over the place, but more than half of them are actually closer to the street than where that building is right now. So I just wanted to put that, highlight that. It's already in the record. It's in your packet. You can go through the reading and see that. The other thing is, for the same reason, Commissioner Lockhart, that I just mentioned prior, because in the P and Z hearings, a lot of other, they were cherry picking, the opposition was cherry picking. But the other buildings were like, with regard to our application. And we needed to respond to that, and we are looking outside of that because of the fact that they were, that opposition in the P and Z hearings were looking at other things that sort of suited their needs, which is to oppose our application. So that's that. So I just wanted to put that out there, and then just read just briefly, sort of from a high level, and we need to be brief, that we know the regulations of this commission were adopted to provide guidance as to factors to be considered in the application for certificate of appropriateness. And we've heard the testimony in this application. It complies with a very fundamental purpose of this commission, which is ultimately preservation. It says so right there in the rates at the beginning. And preservation is exactly what we're doing. We're keeping the building, we're preserving it, we're moving it forward, and it's actually making it more prominent. You've also heard all the reasons why this proposal qualifies for a certificate of appropriateness. You've also heard and read, if you guys do the P and Z documentation and those records. Those records, it shows that the opposition ignored all of those reasons and used inconsistent, inaccurate arguments where it does not. But the bottom line is we're keeping the building and we're making it more visible for everyone to enjoy that. You can actually see it more from where we're prepared to put that. So, and the last point I wanted to make was, we know that the historic district regulations, how the decisions are to be guided. We know from section 5.5 of the regs that the Connecticut general statutes are to take precedence over the U.S. Secretary of Interior guidelines in section 4 of the historic district regulations, and allows this commission, and I'll quote, the power to vary or modify strict adherence to said sections or to interpret the meaning of said sections. So essentially, this commission has the power to not just blindly say, oh, we have to adhere to these regs. You can look at this as a whole, and you can look at it in relationship to what else is in the historic district and all those inconsistencies, and not cherry pick. That's in your power. So it is our belief that this application deserves to obtain a certificate of appropriateness, and we respectfully request that this commission grants it.
I'll be very quick here. I just wanted to respond to a couple of comments that were made by the public here. Just want to make it really clear that we're not building a replica of the building. We're actually moving the exact building, so wouldn't have to recreate those elements. Those elements will actually be there.
Afternoon. You've heard the legal end of this. Let me give you the sort of good glossiness. A preamble to this commission's own regulations talk about protection of buildings and structures associated with the history and style of architecture in Kane. What we are proposing is to take the existing building and move it forward. One of the architects on the other side, this is his quote, "These unique characteristics include a fifth scale shingle decorated and half timbered clapboard siding. It's multi-pane over 2 double hung windows. It's ornamental barred board gables. It's bracketed porch with original railing. It's highly unusual avalanche roof that cascades from the main hip to the entry porch lintel. Is exactly what is there. And this is exactly what we are proposing to keep in its existing shape. The only real change to this building will be in the back of it, where there are probably two additions that were done over time, they're gonna come off the back of this building. But the two sides and the front are gonna look exactly, not dissimilar to what happened with the library. This is gonna get picked up and move forward. You know, this is probably one of the cleanest applications that's ever built in this district that you guys have ever seen. In this context, the application is preserving this, and its visibility, of this 1880 structure. We're gonna restore it to its original use, which was residential, and we're gonna relocate it on site in a way that will enhance its visibility from Main Street. Marty, I'd be happy to move the electrical box or do something. We're gonna keep it planted, you know, happy to make that a condition. We don't like it there. The electrical company, as we've seen, no longer allows them to be buried. They won't let it go in the back. They have a whole list of requirements that regrettably we can't work around. But I don't want you guys to have a preconceived bias to cloud the judgment. What we are doing is keeping this building in the historic district forever. Yes, it's change of use, but it probably should have been commercial or Red Cross to begin with. But all of the comments sort of relate to the importance of, and I don't care if we call it shingle style, stick style, Victorian, all of those details are going to remain. Yes, they're going to get restored. They're sort of the basis of preservation, rehab, restoration, reconstruction. No different than what we did at 4 Main Street with the body of the house, is the same thing that we're going to do with this piece. The difference is we're going to pick this up and we're going to move it forward. Ideally, if we had space in the back to build what I think is a very important housing need in New Canaan, we'd leave it where it is. Regrettably, there's not enough density to make the economics work, which I know is not in the purview of this commission. But essentially, we are keeping the exact building that everybody has sort of pointed out is important for the town of New Canaan. If on any given night, I could pick it up with a helicopter and move it forward, the next morning, most people probably wouldn't notice that it had been moved up on the lot. So while that has been a focus of a lot of the back and forth, I think we have to look at what we are preserving for the rest of the time with the building move. Our attorney, Hollister, did point out that one of the options is demolition. That is the last option I want to consider, because that's contrary to the reason we bought it, contrary to the reason that we're redeveloping it. But all of the details that are important will either be preserved, recreated, or left in its distinguished fashion. So I think a lot of the concerns that we've heard from others is exactly what we're doing. Otherwise, we would be rebuilding the building. That is not the thought. The thought is basically to take the outside facades, move it forward, turn it into residential, and make it a long-term asset for the historic district. I had a lot of other notes. I'm not sure both of them are important, but yes, we are looking for a certificate of appropriateness rather than disregarding the town's interest and what I think the interests of the historical district is, which is to preserve the time. When we're done with this building, there's no reason this building shouldn't last for another 100 or 200 years. So not dissimilar to what we did up the street. It's the same group. And I think it becomes an asset for the town. But we're happy to answer any and all questions if there's anything else that you guys would like to discuss.
Thank you. And by the way, I really appreciate this book and the effort you went into it. It's going to be a good asset for the Historical Society records of the district. It's very thorough.
Oh, it was nothing.
And then I want to go back to tab 1, number 12, reasons to approve the application. I agree with you 100% on, number 1, number 2, number 3. I find number 4 not applicable. Number 5, I agree. Number 6, I'm a little, wishy-washy on. Landscape doesn't count. It's mentioned that, there are mature plantings. So I'd say that statement is sort of not applicable to the decision. Number 7, I have to agree, you haven't stated it, but I would personally state it's rather arbitrary to understand what proportion, scale, and massing actually means. There's no definition of that. And so I'm going to return back to number 7, which section 4.2, number 9 discusses in the standards. Number 8, I agree with completely. Number 9, I agree with completely. Number 10, if the demolition is requested, just as a reminder, it will have to come under review again, even though you'll be able to go forward with the demolition. So there's really one thing that I would say I would hope you could work with together. I was fortunate to work on the number 4 Main Street project with your team. We met regularly during design revisions. And then we met regularly during the construction, and I think it was a real successful project. So if I could make the proposal to accept this application, I would just do it under a few conditions. So this, can I say that?
Well, once the public hearing is closed.
Sure, okay, got it. All right, so after it's closed, then I don't.
My comment to that, as long as they're not owners, look, our intention is to preserve and keep the building, okay? Again, I know the movement up is distracting to a lot of people, but if you go by historic districts throughout Connecticut, the houses are all over the place. You know, you pass by a historic house on White Oak Shade that actually a friend of mine lives in. It is right on the road based on the time period it was built. You know, we tried to look back and see if, you know, Main Street has been moved. Yes, ideally it would stay exactly where it is. We rehab it, but that does not allow us to do what we think is an important second part of this project. And actually is what funds the moving and preservation of this building.
This is not actually have the same kind of bearing, but I'm looking at this. Believe it or not, unless it's changed, the historic district is not, the historic society is not an historic district. Silver School and Rogers Studio mentioning those in here. It's not really applying the historic district.
Yeah, I think the lineage of that, Janet, quite honestly, was from planning and zoning, where one of the opposition said that historic buildings don't get moved.
Okay.
And what we were trying to point out is there is some precedent even in New Canaan, I'll say right around this district where they moved the Rogers Studio. It wasn't to set it, it was more a, yes, if the choice is to either destroy a building or take the option of moving it, yes, it's more time consuming and harder to move it, but we were game for that and also trying to show that it's something that's been done.
All right.
So, Arnold, we are just at the end of the public comments, that is you. And I want to make sure that you've been given a chance to say everything you want to say. And then if you have, we will close the public comments.
I will glance at my team. If anybody else have anything to add?
There can be, if there are discussion of conditions we can have on the record, that would help the process, but that's up to the commissioners.
Would you want to make that point again?
Yes.
But here's the document for you.
Okay, so the commission just said he might have some proposed conditions. If those were stated during the hearing, then Mr. Carp and Mr. Stahl can respond to them. And you'll know which ones they would consider acceptable or not. I just, it's up to you, it's just a way to proceed on.
I would request that. I think that should stay part of the open hearing.
Okay, but we are not at this point making a decision because I have some comments to make as well, which I think are gonna be in opposition to your comments, Marty.
Okay.
But I do want to agree that this booklet, which I've spent, we've had this thing on our desks for 2 months. I've looked at this incredibly thoroughly and I'm looking at it again, just from the perspective of what is our responsibility in the HDC based on the regulations that we have. And there are 2 things that really play into this. One is section 4.1 states new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy the historic spatial relationships that characterize the property. The second one states that new work will be compatible with the size, scale, proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. And I feel like moving of the building, it destroys its relationship to the site and the street. And it says our regular applicant should be guided by the Secretary of the Interior standards. These guidelines state repeatedly, removing or relocating historic buildings or landscape features destroys the historic relationship between the buildings and the landscape in the setting. The other one has to do with the scale of this building. The massing, the height, the proportions of the new structure is totally, it shows it even on the cover of your thing. It's totally overwhelming to the scale and size of the historic house. And this is the gateway to the historic district, and making this change to it would forever change the appearance of our historic district.
I have to say what I spoke before, that was really what I was saying, but it didn't come through on this.
I was gonna say this.
I was saying moving it and.
Yeah,
also
those are
the
the
time.
2 big issues that I have with this project.
I guess before I return to the idea of conditions, I would say, I think it's quite unfortunate that we didn't have pre-application hearings and meetings provided under Article 3, Section 3.1, which has also been a very successful tool in the historic district. It allows, both parties to sit down and review together before anyone invests a great deal of time and money in the project. Even looking at what's designed, it does seem that there could be alterations to the roof without altering the floor plan or even the structure. So conversations like that would have been, I think, advantageous to everyone. I guess I would ask, is there any way there can be, friendly conversation, looking at the drawings together? Looking at the roof line, looking at the height.
Tim Hollister, for the record, first, I think Attorney Gelderman would agree with me. The statutes say that if the commission is going to vote no on this application, it has the obligation to make suggestions about changes to the plan. So if you make suggestions while denying it, those will not go to waste. So you have that option. As to your earlier point, we would love to come here and have a workshop session. We had to go through the zoning commission first, and we had to preserve our flexibility. And Mr. DeAndrea and Mr. Hall will tell you that we did at least 4 or 5 major iterations during the zoning process. If we had come here first and said to zoning, we can't change a thing because we've already been to historic district commission, it never would have worked. So it's just it's the same in land use, if somebody has to go first. And we had to go to zoning first. What we came out with at that process and what we had to present to you.
So I guess, as I understand it, you're suggesting that there is flexibility still.
There was always flexibility.
Thank you.
Tim, that raises, if I may, just a question, I guess. That raises the possibility, and it's up to you as the applicant, but, and I don't know what the commission's gonna do today, because they're required to vote today because of the 65-day limitation that we have. The alternative is if you think there should be additional discussion to withdraw and reapply. And in the interim, have those discussions. If that makes any sense at all, I don't know what discussions would be had, or if they would be fruitful, but that's the only alternative that I can think of, having an actual vote today.
I think if there were a denial with suggestions, observations, we would certainly have to consider coming back with a second application, but I don't think we can extend this process.
That's fine.
I mean, I appreciate your suggestion. I thought about that too, but I just thought that.
By the way, I'm not sure I see in the historic district statute or regulations, the obligation of the commission to make, or within a denial, they have to give their reasons, certainly for denial. But maybe you can point that out.
And does it make sense to have a vote now to see where we're at, so we know?
Well, we're still in the public hearing, until it's closed.
So we close it.
No, not yet. And once the public hearing is closed, nobody else gets to speak, except commission members, so.
Attorney, I understand your hesitation to extend this at all. What if you were to request an extension on a set period of time that, you would request? So it's not another 65 days.
This process unfortunately needs to end tonight. But we don't have any, I think Pete and I are agreeing on that. Trying to point out the
While Attorney Hollister in Arnold Park, while Attorney Hollister is looking for that section, issue that we have, Marty, is I have a burned out, quite honestly, from P&Z. We're here for a certificate of appropriateness. But I am also winding my way through the court here. Yes, I don't think, and then Tim can speak to the character, that I can wholesale change the application. As you said, for these, we're looking for a modification of the roof line or some sort of details. I think that I can probably do a great change, because that would send me back to square one, and that we're unwilling to do it. But You know, as you know, from my time in town, if there's something that's important that you think helps meld this together, we're happy to discuss it.
Then that's the, I'm sorry, me section 7 147 of the general statutes. But that's a section that deals with the ability of the commission to vary certain things by reason of topographical conditions, district borderline situations, or other unusual circumstances with respect to certain parcels that have the ability to vary. But that's not an obligation to set forth the alternatives to annexation.
I think as an administrative agency, they have that power, and that's one iteration, one explanation or one aspect of their power to do so. I think, they're administrative agency, they can approve, deny, approve with conditions.
They could, and I agree with that. If they deny it, all they need to do is, and I agree with that. But I don't think they have the obligation to provide alternatives or so on. But at any rate. Wait, Tom, you can ask if anybody else has any comments, but not close the hearing, and then you can.
I will do that. If there are no other comments from the public at this point, the hearing is closed. Then we will move within the commission to deal with the motion.
Okay, well, I would like to propose a motion that we do not approve this certificate of appropriateness based on the comments I made earlier about the effects of moving the building and the relationship in scale and massing between the existing historic house and the new structure.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right,
Maybe it could be a little bit more detailed. Specific reasons for denial.
Okay, well, again, I'm referring to section 4.1, which talks about new additions, and I believe this, the massing, the scale, the height, the proportions of the new structure is overwhelming to the scale and massing of the existing historic structure. And it's clearly visible from the street, which is one of our main criteria, that any additions, changes should not be visible from the street. In every image, including, clearly shown on the cover rendering, it is clearly visible from Main Street. It's visible from the road that goes through the town hall. It's visible from Vine Cottage. It will forever change the view shed of the entrance to the historic district by building that structure behind the existing house. And that's one of the issues. And again, the other issue is it's a last resort. There are structures that are moved throughout the country, yes, throughout the world. It's a last resort. If nothing else can be done, if the building is going to be demolished and moving it will save it is one thing, but in this case, the building doesn't have to be moved, and moving it so much closer to the street will really change its relationship to the environment that it's in and to the view when you enter into the historic district and Bard's Acre. Those are my reasons.
you are writing the minutes that you so well. You will include.
Yes,
that.
I will definitely.
In this motion. All right, is there more discussion? I don't know if you need me to vote. We will.
Does anyone second?
No,
Yes, you seconded.
No more discussion at this point? Then I call for the vote. Those in favor of the motion?
Tom, can you do a roll call vote? Do a roll call vote, go.
We can.
Because it will still have a hybrid meeting.
Richard, with you.
I'm sorry.
I'm asking you for your, we're gonna do a roll call vote, and you're the first vote.
No, to me, the facility just is not consistent with the historic district. I mean, it's just another view that's going on here, and it just is not,
So we have at the moment a motion to deny the application.
yeah,
How do you vote?
I vote for that. To decline that bid.
Marty?
I vote no.
All right, thank you for voting.
I've become confused in this. I want to deny, is that right?
Yes.
The,
Just a yes.
Oh, wait, no, mine is a no vote. I disagree with the
Yeah.
vote.
Yes.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
a yes vote supports the motion to deny, a no vote.
okay,
You have a yes vote. I vote
I want
yes.
to deny the.
Yes, so
motion.
that's a
Yes, but. So I thought it was going to be confused.
I vote yes.
All right, and I also vote yes.
So we have 5 yeses and 1 no vote.
So the motion is denied.
The
Well,
application.
the application was denied. I want to, again, to thank the persons who have attended the meeting. And that includes the people who have joined us on Zoom. Thank you for being here. And, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
So, did you get